Hey everybody, it's been a while since I posted a video, but that's because I was working real hard. So today I'm going to talk about this promo we shot. So our station was teaming up with the Light the Night Foundation, and we are doing a Light the Night Walk in Boston. The Light the Night Walk is a fundraiser for cancer research. You form teams, you get donations, and then you get to walk around the Esplanade in Boston carrying these little lanterns. More on the lanterns in a bit. So this is Vanessa Welsh. She is our lead evening anchor, and she will be at the walk. So we shot a little promo for it. Half of it was footage that was supplied to us by the foundation, and the other half we shot. We were going to do a traditional green screen background and just key some graphics behind her, but our art director had a great idea. He recommended just hang up the lanterns and shoot the talent in front of the lanterns. So that's what I did. So you can see here, this is the set that we made. I got a bunch of interns, and I had them help me hang up all these lanterns. Believe it or not, this mannequin happens to be the same exact height as Vanessa, so whenever I have to shoot Vanessa, I will always grab this mannequin and light it up, so she doesn't have to stand there for hours. I put the mannequin and eventually Vanessa about, 15, 20 feet in front of all these lanterns. These are the lights we used. They're old Aries 650s. They're old, but they still work. And they're halogen bulbs, and they're plugged into our lighting grid, which means I can sit at the lighting grid controls and literally dial in as much light as I'm going to need. Takes a while to set up. You got to go up and down the ladder a bunch of times, but once you set up these lights and they're in the grid, you have infinite control over them. So here's a shot looking at the set. So we've got the mannequin here, and we've got all these lights, I'd say about 15 feet behind her. Okay, so here's a horrible picture of our set in action. I took this with my cell phone. This is our FS7 camera. We used an 85mm cinema prime lens. And there is Vanessa standing in front of the wall of lit up lanterns. And you can see right here, this is the backlight for Vanessa. What I did was I used 3 lights and I turned every other light in the studio off. Here's a horribly ugly diagram of what I did. I had a light here aiming this way at the talent and another light here aiming this way at the talent. I barn doored these lights and I put them in a very extreme angle. The light went on the talent, but it didn't light up any of these globes. Same thing with the light over here. I barn doored it and that light hit the talent, but Vanessa was standing far enough in front of these lanterns and the light was set at such an angle that none of the light from these 2 front lights hit the lights in the background. They just hit the talent. And of course, there's a backlight to give her a nice rim around the back of her head. And all these little dots represent the lanterns behind her. So that's how I set it up, and then I came in to resolve the color correct it. Now this is what we shot. If we take a look at the scopes, the brights aren't very bright, and the blacks are all kind of crushed. This was shot in Sony S-Log, and I did it in S-Log on purpose because I knew I would need a huge dynamic range to completely crush these blacks and to get the white of her dress to come out correctly. When I was on set, I purposely did the exposure a little too dark. I for certain could have boosted up this exposure a lot more to make this a lot brighter, but when I did that, the globes didn't look glowy. They looked kind of blown out and jarring. I wanted a nice, soft, gentle glow coming off those bulbs. And if I opened up the iris too much, even shooting log, it didn't look right. This is a good example of why you'd want your art director or your editor or your colorist on a shoot, because they can kind of look at these things and point them out to the director of photography. I knew the look I wanted, and I wasn't getting it at a brighter f-stop, so technically you could argue that this image isn't exposed correctly, and it probably wasn't. But I knew I was shooting log, I knew all the information was there, and I knew if I shot it correctly, I could come into post, into the resolve, and fix it. So the very first node here is a denoise node. We have Boris FX. It's the BCC noise reduction node. I'm going to zoom in, and we can see here, particularly in the blacks, there's a lot of noise in that picture. See when I play it down? Let's look at her dress. Look at her arm here too. You can see there's a lot of noise in that picture. And the reason why there's a lot of noise is because it's a very dark image. In the very first node, I did a denoise. Now, the very best noise reducer I ever used ever, was Neat Video. Neat Video is an amazing plugin. It's a denoiser, and it's also a render hog. Unfortunately, I don't have that, but I do have BCC, so that's the one I used. When I watched tutorials for Neat Video, they recommended doing the denoise node first. So that's what I usually do. I'm going to turn the node on, and it takes a second. And you can see that's with the node on. It plays back very slowly because denoise, no matter who the manufacturer is a real render hog. I'm going to turn it off, and I'm going to turn it on. That's probably a little bit too much denoise, but I wanted this spot to be kind of smooth and glowy. So if I was doing a television show or a feature film, probably wouldn't use this much denoise, but this much denoise and that much smoothing really helped give this spot a nice kind of glow to it. So I cranked it up a little bit too high on purpose. I'm going to turn that off for now because holy cow, denoise really, really slows down your system. When I did this job originally, I color corrected the whole shot, then I went back in and added the denoise node. So when we were on set, I didn't realize this, even though I'm a colorist and even though I was looking at the video on a monitor with a LUT on it. For the Light the Night Foundation, all of these colored lanterns represent something. The red lanterns are carried by people who are supporting the walk. The gold or the yellow lanterns represent someone who lost a loved one to cancer. The white lanterns represent people who had cancer and successfully beat it. So the color of these lanterns is crucial, and I didn't realize this until after the shoot was done, even though I was looking at a monitor with a LUT on it. These lanterns are all lit by a single LED bulb, and I was using halogen lamps that look like this to light the talent. So what happened? All of my white turned blue, and all of my yellow turned a little bit orangey. So this was a big problem. In my very first node, I qualified the yellow lanterns. You can see here on the scope, I pushed them away from green and over to yellow. Off, on, off, on. My yellow lamps are now yellow. In the second node, I brought down my lift, brought down my gamma a little bit, and I really cranked up my gain to get the proper exposure. My lamps are looking pretty good. I've got a nice yellow gold here. I've got nice glowy red, and I have a good exposure on Vanessa. I didn't realize this when I was doing it because I am certainly not a director of photography and I am certainly not a lighting director. But our chief engineer, who used to be a lighting director, told me if you're using halogen bulbs on a grid, as I was, and you turn them down to below 70% intensity, they'll turn really, really yellow. And I had the two lights in the front of Vanessa turned down to about 45. So she got a little too yellow, and this is a white dress, and the dress wasn't too white. So in node 2, I did a key of the dress, and I turned it white. Off, on. You can see in the scopes, I pushed it down to a little blue. So if I toggle it off and on, you can see it's poking down here to the cyan and to the blue, but that's okay. I felt it looked better a little cool than yellow, and you can see on the scopes here, that's with it off. Very red, very yellow. Hardly any blue in it. I'm going to turn it back on. And I pushed it a little bit to the blue. It looked a little weird, white, like this. So I just put it a little to the blue. Off, on. So in node 3, I qualified her skin and I did a few things. Her skin was very yellow because of the yellow lights, like I said. So I pushed it up a bit to red. And the light was a little harsh on her face, I felt. I could only do so much with ceiling grid lights. So I turned down the mid-tone detail to soften up her skin a little bit. The mid-tone detail softening combined with the denoise grain really gave her skin a nice glow, which I felt matched the nice soft glow of the globes behind her. I'm going to turn this denoise node off because it takes forever to render the frame when it's on. In node 8, I felt her hands got a little too reddish. They're a little too red and pinky there. See, on, off, on, off. You can see on the scope right here, the vector scope, that's with it off. Her hands are pointing a little bit to the red. Let me blow it up here. That's where her hands are right there, and that's with it on. I just took some of the red cast off of her hands. Don't know how that got there. Again, I'm not a lighting director, but I just qualified her hands like that and pushed it a little bit back from red. So in this node, again, because I didn't really know what I was doing with the lights, her teeth got a bit yellow. All I did was did a Luma key on her teeth and took some of the yellow out. So that's off. Little too yellow, little weird looking. That's on. Those teeth are my bad. I should have seen that was a little too yellow. This node I didn't end up using. I just left it in there. I tried a few things, didn't work, but I never deleted it. For this node, again, these lanterns should be white. White designates survivors. And all I can say is thank God she wore a white dress because it made keying this a lot easier. If I turn everything off, those lamps looked a little bit blue. So these lamps should have been white. Because they're LED bulbs and I was white balanced for halogen bulbs, anything LED lit turned blue. So these lamps are the only blue thing in the picture. Now, her dress was a titch blue that I made back here. I had two choices to fix this. First choice was pull a qualifier. Now, when you do keys in Resolve or any software, sometimes you can get noise, sometimes you can get all kinds of things happening in that key that you don't want. I will often try this first if it's something this extreme, which it is. This is hue versus saturation. What's happening here? Anything blue in that picture is going to be desaturated. So if I turn this node on, we can see all of those blue lights have been desaturated. Now it works the other way too. I can crank it way up and everything blue in that picture gets really saturated. But we wanted it the other way around, so I bring it down here. Now that's taking some of the blue out of her dress, but that's fine. What I really needed was the blue out of these lights. And like I said, when there's an extreme color happening and I have to get rid of it, I will often come in and do hue versus sat. If you look at the scopes, there's her dress. The dress is now pretty much white. So if I turn that node off, you can see there's some blue coloring in her dress, a little bit of green in there. I'm going to turn the node back on. Her dress turns to white, and I'm pretty much fine with that. It was a white dress to begin with. Now this one might be a little tough to see on YouTube, but I've seen this technique used on a lot of tutorials. We've got a lot of low in this picture, a lot of low end, a lot of blacks. And the reason why there's a lot of black in this picture is because when I photographed it, I stopped down a little bit and I wanted it to be black. I wanted the blacks to be really crunchy, really just on the bottom blacks. And when you do that, you will get a lot of noise in your picture. And if you look at the scopes, there's a lot of blue noise in those blacks. You can see the blues cropping up. And you can see if you really blow it up, and I'm going to play it, there's a lot of blue noise in there on the low end. A quick way to fix that is like this. I'm going to do luma versus saturation. What does this graph mean? This is black, this is white. So any saturation on the low end is now going to get crushed. So I'm going to turn the node on and we'll take a look. A lot of that noise is now gone. Off, on. Off, on. Anything past this luminance point, I don't know what this means mathematically on the scale. I can take a guess. Maybe anything under 50 IRE will have all the saturation sucked out of it. Let's take a look at the scopes. That's our black level right there. That's with the node off. Look at all that noise and all that color information in our blacks. This is with the node on. It's now a straight line. What does that mean? It means there's no color in there. All the chrominance has been sucked out of the low end. That's a good way to denoise things if you have a lot of noise in your low end. And I've also been told to get a cinematic look. That's one of the things you can try, is desaturating your low end or desaturating your high ends. I mostly use it for noise reduction, but you know, it's a technique you can use. Try it out. I knew it was going to come in handy for this shoot, and I did it, and it worked. So for this last node, I just put another noise reduction node on it. I felt it gave her skin a little more softness, a little more glow, and it gave the overall picture a little bit more glow. Probably not necessary, but it was just that finishing touch that I felt really elevated this shot to the next level. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you learned a thing or two, and as usual, I will show the promo in its entirety. I obviously color corrected all the shots of Vanessa, and I gave a little bit of color correction to the B-roll that was given to us, the kids walking around in the actual walk, but not much. That stuff all looked really great. Happy correcting, everybody.
Celebrate survivors, walk for loved ones, and bring bright light to the darkness of cancer. The Leukemia and Lymphoma Society's Light the Night celebration. Join Boston 25 for this powerful community event, October 17th on the Boston Common. Together, we'll raise critical funds for blood cancer treatment and cures. Register at lightthenight.org.